Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. Good to see you all.
Hare Krishna, Babu.
Tonight we're continuing with our study of Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Tonight we will finish chapter 3. Chapter 3 is entitled Karma Yoga. And tonight we'll go from verses 33 to 42. And as usual, if you have any questions or any comments as we go, then please ask. So we'll begin with text number 33. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows and accomplish. Oh, this is important, actually. It's one of the verse, chapter 3. Chapter 3 have very severe with according to one's nature. We come into this world and then we become covered by a material form, a material body. That's what the material body is temporary, right? You have female body or male body, or you have American or Australian, whatever it is. These are all temporary designations, right? This is not who we are, right? It's what we call upadi. Upadi means designation. We accept so many designations in this world. We're always designating ourselves according to our material calculation. You know, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, all these things. These are all material designations. It's not who we are, the soul. So, as Krishna is mentioning here, everyone acts according to their nature. So because we identify with the body and with the mind, which accompanies the body, we act in a particular way, right? And that's our nature. Everyone has various natures in this world, right? Everyone has individual nature, different traits, different personality types, different characteristics, and we identify with these things, right? So this is called upadi, or nation, and then we act according to our nature. You know, you see people all over the world, they act according to their nature. Everyone has a particular nature and everyone's acting according to it, right? But it's all based on just what we're finding or what we're identifying with in this world. It's not our eternal nature. So this is important to understand. Everyone follows the nature they've acquired from the three modes, right? This will be discussed further in the Bhagavad Gita, but the modes are being spoken about. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, you must be familiar with the three. Sattva, we say goodness. Rajas means passion. Tamas means darkness, ignorance. So we're a combination of the three. Krishna explains this later in Bhagavad Gita, where our personality is a mixture of the three, and they're always fighting for supremacy. So because of our nature, we act in a particular way. Those in goodness are more peaceful. Those in passion are more active. Those in tend towards dark activities. Right? So we all act according to our nature. This is called, and this chapter is called Karma Yoga. In other words, you're going to act in this world regardless of what you do in this world. Everyone acts. You can say, well, I'm going to live in an ashram in the Himalayas and reject society. You're active. You have to do something, right? We all have to be active in this world, right? According to our particular nature. So karma means activity, and yoga, as Krishna is teaching in this chapter, means that we act according to our nature, but we try to connect our activities to Krishna. In other words, for the pleasure of the divine. Right? We don't just act selfishly or materialistically, which is what everyone does in this world. Everyone's very materialistic in this world because it's the material world. So everyone's very materialistic. So because everyone's materialistic, they act. Everyone's very enthusiastic to act, but they act for themselves. Right? Whereas what Krishna is teaching in Bhagavad Gita is act for him. This is called Bhakti, which is what the main theme of the Bhagavad Gita is. Right? We act. We have to act anyway, but we connect our actions or we offer them to Krishna. So you like to study. Okay, study the Bhagavad Gita, but then teach others about Krishna. You like to farm. Okay, grow vegetables, offer them to Krishna. So many activities are there. So act according to your nature, but then offer the results to Krishna. That's the basic theme of this chapter. So Prabhupada says in the purport, in the commentary for this verse, it is better to be situated in one's position and try to attain Krishna consciousness under superior training. Krishna will mention this actually in chapter 18, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, you have to do your duty, because if you try to do another's duty, you won't do it properly anyway. Better to do your duty improperly than try to do another's duty perfectly. In other words, act according to your nature. Under superior training. This is an important point. In the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 4, the next chapter, Krishna will mention the necessity, or he highly recommends, being God himself, we follow a guru, that we have gurus in our life. In other words, if we can't work out how to act in this world, if we have gurus, the gurus can instruct us. You should act in this particular way. You should do this particular service, right? They'll give us instruction, right? That's the benefit of having gurus. So that's why Prabhupada is mentioning we need training under superior authority. That way we can learn how to act properly in this world. Then Prabhupada says, thus one may be freed from the clutches of Krishna's Maya. Right? One time in New Vrindavan, which is in West Virginia, in America, in West Virginia, we have a farm. We have many farms like this. I think there's 150 or so around the world. We have many farms. So the first one was in West Virginia. It's still there, called New Vrindavan. So Prabhupada, and someone asked him, they said, why is Maya so strong? Maya means this material illusion. Why is it so strong? Because we're all controlled by it. We're all acting under the influence of Maya. We're all enamored by Maya. So they said to Prabhupada, why is Maya so strong? Prabhupada said, Maya is not strong, you are not sincere. Because when you are completely focused on becoming Krishna conscious or self-realized, Maya can't touch you. But when you're not completely focused, which is all of us, we're not completely focused, then Maya distracts us. She makes us dance like a puppet under her influence. That is the potency of Maya. Mahamaya. Krishna says later in the Bhagavad Gita, Daivihesha gunamayi mamamaya durachaya. Daivihesha gunamayi mamamaya. Krishna says this is my illusion. Just like if someone performs a magic trick. David Copperfield, I think, is the most famous of the magicians, I think. So if he does, one time I saw, not live, but I saw on television many, many years ago, David Copperfield made an elephant disappear in front of everyone. Right? And a full-size elephant, like, huge. And they put a big sheet up and then brought it, it's gone. There were people sitting 360 degrees almost, like all around. It's an amazing trick. An amazing trick. But we know it's a trick. We know it. We know, I don't know how he did it, but he did it somehow. It was a trick. He didn't make it disappear. He's not that powerful that it just disappeared. No, he did something. Mirrors or I don't know, or trapdoors and all these things they use. But he did it. Right? But we know it's a trick. Krishna, God himself, is so powerful that when he puts us into illusion, we don't even know we're in illusion. That's how powerful it is. We're in it, but we don't realize we're in it. We don't even realize this is just a illusion that we're all living in this world. People take it so seriously, this world, because they think it's real. What do most people do in modern society? You get a job, you buy a house, you have a couple of kids, you retire, and you die. That's basically it. That's the. But everyone thinks, and actually it's interesting, Yudhishthira, who was Arjuna's older brother, he was once asked by Yaksha, by Yamaraj, his father actually, who came to him in the disguise of a Yaksha. This is a famous story from Mahabharata. And he had to answer various questions to bring his brothers back to life. It's a famous pastime, interesting pastime. So Yudhishthira was asked by Yamaraj, what is the most amazing thing you've seen in this world? What's the most amazing thing you've seen? Yudhishthira said, although every day we all see people and other creatures going to the kingdom of death, everyone thinks it's not going to happen to them. He said that's the most amazing thing about this world. Even last week, one of our friends, good friend of ours, passed away only 10 days ago. But it's like we think it's not going to happen to us, although we know it is. But many people in this world live in such a way as if it's not going to happen. No, it's not really going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen, but it's not really. Because I keep taking everything so seriously in this world. I'm so attached to this world. So this is called Maya, illusion. Mama Maya Durachaya, Krishna says, it's very difficult to overcome this illusion. So we want to get out of illusion. That's what the Bhagavad Gita is for. It's a guidebook, how to get out of illusion. And what does Bhagavad Gita recommend in terms of getting out of illusion? Now, the Bhagavad Gita teaches us, if you want to get out of illusion, which all of us do, we want to get out of illusion, If you want to get out of the, then start connecting, as Krishna's teaching in this chapter, your activities to him, right? Make them an act of devotion. That is called Bhakti Yoga, or in this chapter, Karma Yoga. It's very simple, right? Just you're going to act all day anyway. You're going to work all day anyway. Just offer the work to Krishna. Right? That's the basic message that Krishna gives us. This will bring us out of illusion. Right? It's very simple but very powerful simultaneously. Prabhupada further says in the commentary, in the purport, unless one is situated on the transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness, he cannot get free from the influence of the modes of material nature. Even for the most highly educated materialist, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of Maya simply by theoretical knowledge or by separating the soul from the body. Here's an interesting point that Prabhupada makes. It's not theoretical. If you want to become Krishna conscious or self-realized, it's not theoretical. It's not just by theoretical knowledge that you'll become perfect. Right? You'll become perfect by acting on the knowledge. Right? We have to begin to act. Not that we just have this knowledge but not the body, but then you have to actually do something from the platform of the soul, devotional activity, devotional service. Prabhupada further says, there are many so-called spiritualists who outwardly pose as advanced in the science, but inwardly or privately are completely under particular modes of nature which they are unable to surpass. Academically, one may be very learned, but because of his long association with material nature, he is in bondage. So once again, this is not theoretical knowledge. This is practical knowledge. This is spoken of by Haridas Thakur, actually Sanatana Goswami. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, he speaks about Haridas Thakur. He says, you are perfect, a perfect teacher, because you don't just speak perfectly, spiritual knowledge, but you also act perfectly. We have to have both. Right? You can say spirit, anyone can do this. You know, I'm giving a class now. It sounds very enlightened. But then you have to see tomorrow, oh, does he actually act on what he talks about? Right? And someone who acts on what they speak, then we can understand they are an enlightened person. Right? And we see so many examples in the world. We've all seen them. People, they say one thing, but they do another. And then everyone loses faith. You know, we're seeing that right now in the world. They all say one thing and then they do another thing. All right? Now everyone's lost faith. You know, in religious leaders, in politicians, teachers, family members, friends. Right? Someone says something to you and they do the opposite thing, you lose faith. Right? Or they act in one way, they act apparently in a good way, but then they speak all sorts of they speak in ignorant ways. So the point is that we have to act and speak cohesively. That's the sign of enlightenment. Then we know the person, just like Prabhupada, the founder of the Hare Krishna movement, who is on the seat of honor over there. His picture is there. You know, the reason we follow his teachings is because we saw that he acted and spoke in the same way. He didn't tell us to do one thing and then do the opposite. No, he did it. Just like, you know, we all know the example, you know, you're growing up, your parents tell you don't smoke, right? I never smoked because my father told me not to, but he smoked. And my brothers, you know, they ended up smoking. And my father, you know, would say, don't smoke. It doesn't make any sense. You're doing it. Or don't drink, you're doing it. Don't take drugs, you're doing it. It doesn't make any sense. That's why everyone's so confused in this world. That's why we need enlightened teachers, people who actually practice what they speak. That's called acharya. Acharya means one who teaches by example. It doesn't just say it, but he actually does it. So that's what's being spoken of here. Then Prabhupada says, therefore, without being fully in Krishna consciousness, one should not give up his occupational duties. No one should suddenly give up his prescribed duties and become a so-called yogi or transcendentalist artificially. This was spoken of in the beginning of this chapter. Krishna said, do not be mityacha. Mityacha means pretentious. Don't be a pretender. You know, we see all over the world, I've met many people, they claim to be spiritual, but it's pretentious because, you know, as soon as you examine them a little bit, you see they're not actually up to the standard they're speaking about. Yeah, even unfortunately, you know, we found out not long ago that the Dalai Lama, he's eating fish and different things. You know, this is the world leader of Buddhism. The whole teaching of Buddha is non-violence. And then Paul McCartney, who's been a vegetarian for, I don't know, 60 years or more, you know, a long time. Yeah, he wrote to the Dalai Lama. They're the same age. They're both 82, I think, or whatever. He wrote to the, you can see it, you can look it up on the internet. He wrote a letter to him and said, why are you eating meat? You know, what's this? And Dalai Lama wrote back. It wasn't the Dalai Lama, but someone on his behalf wrote back and said, oh, it's because of medical reasons. So Paul McCartney wrote back and said, that's not a very good explanation. That's not a very good explanation, you know. So the point is, as is being mentioned here, don't be pretentious. Don't pretend to be one thing and do another. And don't give up your duties, but act and connect your duties in a spiritual way to Krishna, because you must act anyway. You can't give up activity in this world. It's not possible. Right? It's not possible. Very few people can actually give up. I mean, no one actually gives up activity because you have to do something. You have to eat. Eating is an activity. No one gives up activity entirely, but you can move to a ashram high in the Himalayas and detach yourself from society. That's possible, but most of us won't last long. Most of us won't last long. You know, just like the Buddhists do vipassana, silent retreats, 10 days, silence. I've spoken to a number of people who've done it. It's very good for many people because many people need to do it. They need to stop talking because everyone talks material things. So it's good for many people. It's also very good because it makes you face your mind, which is also very good for many people. Many people need to face their mind, which is also highly beneficial. So for many people, they can do these activities, but I've spoken to a number of people who've done it, and they said it's actually not that easy. So, you know, people can say they're going to give up activity, but most people will come back to this world anyway. So better just to live in this world, do your activity, do your duty, act according to your nature, but connected to Krishna. That's the basic message. Okay. All right, text number 34. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. So this is a very interesting subject matter which Krishna is bringing up here. Raga and Dvesha. Raga means attachment. Dvesha means aversion or detachment. As is explained, Prabhupada explains, attachment and aversion are two sides of the same coin. Right? Spiritual life means to become detached, which is good. We should become detached from this world. Right? We should not remain attached to this world. We should become detached. That's good. However, some people become averse. That's a different thing. Not just that they're detached from this world, they become averse. Like, they become like with women, for example. I was a monk for 8 years, right? So I lived as a monk for 8 years. So it means we were celibate. We didn't have contact with the opposite sex. We dealt with the opposite sex and we spoke with them, but we were taught to be detached. Because attachment to the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever your preference is, that's one of the strongest points of bondage within this world, right? Our attachment to sex life, basically. So, as a monk, but some of the monks, they were averse to women. Like it was too much. It's like, I remember one time I was speaking to a lady. I was a monk, but I was speaking to a lady because she visited the ashram, and then afterwards, one of the other monks said, I walked in, and one of the monks said to me, "When are you going to start your harem?" What are you talking about? I'm just speaking to this lady. What am I supposed to do? Oh, I can't speak to you. I'm a monk. That's not very good public relations. Like, how are we going to attract people to our spiritual movement if we can't even speak to them? So that's called aversion. And it's the opposite side of the coin of attachment. It means if you're too averse to something, it means you're too attached to it. That's what it means. But you're just showing it in a different way, that's all. And we all know, like chocolate ice cream. I think everyone likes chocolate ice cream. 99% of the population. So, you're attached to it, or you could act like you're averse to it. Oh, no, I don't like it. You're just saying that because then you're thinking you'll put other people off, so then you can go and eat more of it later. So it's just attachment and aversion are just the same side, different sides of the same coin. That's all. So Krishna is saying that if you want to progress in spiritual life, you have to get beyond raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion in this world, because that's what binds us to this world. Prabhupada says in the purport, attachment to Krishna consciousness or acting always in the loving service of Krishna detaches one from all kinds of sensory activities. Therefore, no one should try to be detached from Krishna consciousness at any stage of life. The whole purpose of detachment from all kinds of sense attachment is ultimately to become situated on the platform of Krishna consciousness. So what's being recommended here is attachment, as Krishna speaks earlier in this chapter. Attachment cannot be given up. We cannot become unattached because it's the nature of the soul, actually, to be attached. We're all attached to people and family and friends and so many things we're attached to. And what Prabhupada is saying here is attach yourself to Krishna and things related to Krishna. That's all. Because you're going to be attached to something anyway, but be attached to something which is going to help you attain the spiritual platform, or it's going to help you eternally, as opposed to being attached to something temporary. Because everyone in this world is attached to temporary things, and that doesn't benefit them ultimately, eternally. It doesn't benefit them. Just like, I gave the example, I think, in the previous class. Prabhupada went to St Kilda, which is in Melbourne, one of the suburbs in Melbourne. And the temple, there was a courtyard at the back of the temple, and the tree was there in the courtyard, and the tree was growing towards the house. And Prabhupada said that tree is the previous owner of the house. And because he's so attached to the house, he took birth as the tree just outside the house, and now he's trying to get back in. That's attachment. We have to be very careful because we're all attached to things in this world. And Krishna says in chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, later on, he says, Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam, whatever you think about at the time of death, that's what you will attain without fail. If you're attached to things in this world, you will be born again according to your karma, again in this world, and you'll have to experience it all again. So attachment is there, but make your attachment to Krishna. That way you don't have to be born again in this world. You can go back to the kingdom of God, back to the spiritual world, to live there eternally. Prabhupada further says, those who are not in Krishna consciousness should follow the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures. Unrestricted sense enjoyment is the cause of material engagement. But one who follows the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures does not become entangled by sense objects. So in other words, Krishna actually mentions this in the Bhagavad Gita. He talks about regulative principles of freedom. So those who have come into contact with the Hare Krishna movement, they know we have 4 regulative principles that those of us who are devout or committed to this tradition, 4 things that we voluntarily endeavor to do. We don't eat meat. We don't have illicit sex. We don't take intoxication. And we don't gamble. So sometimes, we go to different places, schools, and we explain our tradition, our teachings, our beliefs. And sometimes people say we say we don't eat meat, have illicit sex, take intoxication or gamble. And people have said to me, what do you do? What do you do? Well, then what do you do? And we said, well, we serve Krishna. Right? We don't eat meat. We have vegetarian food. We eat nicely. Our food's better, in my opinion. But we don't eat meat. We don't take intoxication. No. I never think of intoxication. Never. You could bring all the drugs or all the alcohol or whatever in the world here right in front of me now. It wouldn't bother me even slightly. Right? So it just, there's no attachment to these kind of things. Right? Illicit sex. Right? To enjoy sex life, in non-marital relationships and, as a monk. So these things are just not attractive once you experience a higher pleasure in spiritual life. Param drishtva nivartate. And then gambling. I've never had a problem with gambling in my life, but some people do. I've never experienced, but I know some people really have a problem with it. I think a few of my cousins, actually, I think they have problems with it. They've, kind of addicted to it. So it says here, these are regulative principles of freedom, right? And someone from the outside might say, wow, you guys are just following all these rules and all these regulations, and it's restricting your life. No, it's actually the opposite. It's actually giving us freedom to experience spiritual bliss, spiritual happiness. So, but if you're a materialist, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the materialist and the spiritualist, it's like night and day. What is our night is their day. What is our day is their night. It's like oil and water, they do not mix. If someone is on the spiritual path, they just don't engage in material activities. There's no pleasure there. Someone who's on the material path, they won't go to spiritual activities because they can't understand the pleasure which is there. Then Prabhupada says, and yet we should not rely upon the control of such allowances. One has to follow those rules and regulations unattached to them, because practice of sense gratification under regulations may also lead one to go astray. The sense enjoyment spirit has been current a very long, long time, owing to material association. Therefore, in spite of regulated sense enjoyment, there is every chance of falling down. Therefore, any attachment for regulated sense enjoyment must be also avoided by all means. So, in other words, if you want to have sex, it is said in the traditional sense, you get married and you have kids. And then that will get rid of your attachment to sex. Because when you have to bring up kids, it's a lot of work. That's the point. That's why the system is there. Right? So, but Prabhupada's saying here, even in a regulated way, even though you're only having sex to procreate, even that's can form into an attachment. So basically, we have to give up the spirit of enjoying separately from Krishna. That's what's being spoken of in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Text number 35. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another duties perfectly. Distraction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. Prabhupada says, when one is under the spell of the modes of material nature, one should follow the prescribed rules for his particular situation and should not imitate others. At the same time, he must have a full sense of Krishna consciousness. Everyone has to cleanse his heart by a gradual process, not abruptly. So, do the duty that you've been given. Sometimes in this world, we look at another person's position in life and the service they do for Krishna, and we think, oh, I want to do what they do. But maybe you don't have the qualification to do what they do. Therefore, you should do what you have been given in this world, what you're meant to do in this world. That's what you should focus upon. And understand that it's a gradual process of purification. It will take time to get purified. It will take time to become enlightened. Right? So just practice the path that you've been given, act according to your nature in this world, right? And gradually become self-realized over time. You can't force it prematurely. I think I mentioned to you in some of the previous classes, when I became a monk, you I mean, you make progress quickly because you're so focused. But I think I said to you that I remember thinking at one point, I'm going to be enlightened within 2 years. So I just felt like I was making so much progress. And now I've been doing it for like 35 years, and I realize I'm not even close to the goal of becoming enlightened. But in the beginning, you think, oh, wow, I'm making so much progress. I'm going to be a master, within no time. But then you realize the longer you practice, the more you realize that, no, you've got a long way to go. So in other words, it's a gradual process, and you have to be committed. It's actually a lifelong process. That's something that many people miss. They don't understand this, and I say this to people all. This is a lifelong commitment. You're not going to get enlightened quickly or easily. And even if you do, you're just going to keep going anyway, because then you have service. You have to help everyone else become enlightened. So it's something you have to commit yourself to for a long time to come. So that's what this is about. As has been mentioned, it's a gradual process, and you have to be prepared to stick at it, right, over a long period of time, because it takes time to become an enlightened soul. Okay, text number 36. Arjuna said, this is interesting actually. The final part of this chapter is very relevant to everyone in this world. Right? I often, sometimes if I'm doing seminars for people who are just beginning, I speak on this section, these verses, which will finish this chapter. It's very relevant to all of us, what's being mentioned. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Right? I think all of us have this experience in this world. Sometimes in life, there's something that you shouldn't do, but you go ahead and do it anyway. Have you had that experience? Yeah. I think that's 100%. I think if anyone says they haven't done that, they're lying, or they're very progressed spiritually. But I think for the rest of us, we've all done this, right? You shouldn't do something, and there's a little voice in your heart. When your heart beats real fast, when you're doing something wrong, and your heart goes boom, boom, boom. That's God. Or what we call Paramatma in Bhagavad Gita. Paramatma means super soul, because he's in our heart. The reason it's doing that is because you're in your heart. Your soul is situated here, and Paramatma is there also. It says in Svateshwara Upanishad, it's like two birds sitting on a branch, sitting next to each other. So Krishna's here and we're here. That's why we know we're here. We know that's where the soul is. And Krishna's also there. When we're going like that, that's because we know we're right next to the Supreme Soul, and we're about to do something that we know he's not going to approve of, but we're going to do it anyway. And that's why the heart starts going like that, right? Because he's in there, and he's like, his energy or your ignorant energy just starts disturbing everything, and your heart goes, boop, boop, boop. That's not good. I don't think I do that too much anymore, but if I ever get to the point where I feel that, I say, hey, reverse. You're going in the wrong direction now. This is not good. It shouldn't happen too much now, because we should have learned our lessons. But the point is, Arjuna is saying, what is it that makes me do it anyway, even though I know it's wrong, but I still do it? So he's asking Krishna himself. He's asking God himself. Why do we do that? So now this is what Krishna will answer But the rest of this chapter will be the answer. So Krishna says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. Kama esha, Krodha esha, Rajaguno, Samudbhava. Krishna says in the Sanskrit. Kama esha, Krodha esha, Rajaguno. Samudbhava means born from Rajagun. Rajagun means the mode of passion, which we're all influenced by in this world. You know, we're hyper-stimulated, especially in the modern age. People are hyper-stimulated. You know, like we've got a very famous world leader right now from a particular country across the ocean. You may know who I'm talking about tonight. He's a hyper-stimulated individual. There's so much passion within his consciousness, hyper-stimulated. Passion's not a bad thing if it's used in the right way, right? It's good to be active and enthusiastic and driven. These are good things, but you need to make sure you're acting and working under guidance and you're going in the right direction for the benefit of yourself and others. You know? So this is called Rajagun. So that's where lust comes from. Now lust, kama esha, kam, in Sanskrit we call lust kam. Kam, it doesn't just mean sexual lust, which is the most obvious and I suppose blatant way in which lust is manifest. Right, we see lust in this world manifest mainly as sex desire, but it means any material desire. That's lust. That's calm. Right, you just want to do something. You just want to enjoy yourself, separate from Krishna, separate from God. That's calm. That's lust. Right? So Krishna says, "Kama esha krodha." Krodha means anger. Anger is the little brother of lust. Sometimes people have anger management problems. This is a big thing now in the modern world. People have anger I mean, you've probably, maybe you have it yourself, or maybe you know someone who really struggles with their anger. The Bhagavad Gita is teaching us right here, where does anger come from? It comes from unsatisfied desire. Now, if someone's angry, it's because their desires are not satisfied. That's why it's called Krodha, means the follower of lust, right? Lust means your desire. And when your desire is not satisfied, then you become angry and frustrated. So anger always follows lust. Wherever there's lust, there will be anger. It will become unsatisfied. You know.
How do you explain anger in children?
Same, unsatisfied desire. You know, because they're not getting what they want. You know, like we've all seen kids in public in the supermarket, you know, rolling around on the floor screaming because they didn't get what they want. So it's the same thing in adults. We just don't get what we want and we become angry. And in kids, it's just the same thing. It's just easy to see because they're more simple-hearted. But it's the same thing, same principle. If a kid's angry, it just means he's not getting what he wants, that's all. So now Krishna gives a very basic explanation. Arjuna says, why is it I do things I know I shouldn't do? Krishna says, lust, material desire, material consciousness. Now Krishna will unpack or explain this concept. As fire is covered by smoke, as mirror is covered by dust, or as an embryo is covered by the womb, a living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. So, we are all covered by different layers or different, you could say, levels of this lust. Right? All of us have different levels. We just see it at different levels within the creation. If someone becomes too lusty, just like it says, like when the child is within the embryo, like you can't see the child inside the mother's womb. You can't see it. So it's completely covered. That's like being born as a plant or like an animal. What are the plants? What are the animals? They're humans, but they're too lusty or too material, had too much material desire. So then, okay, become an animal. You're going to act like an animal, become an animal. I've seen it myself. One time I was driving many years ago. I went past a pig truck. All the pigs are in the back of the truck being taken to the abattoir. Right? So I looked up at the driver as I went past, and I swear to God, he looked like a pig. And it was so obvious to me that because as a human, he's not acting like a human. He was about to become covered because of his consciousness being materialistic. He probably all he probably thought about was eating pigs. People are very fond of eating pigs, pork and ham and these things. Then next life you will become a pig. You have to take that birth yourself, and that's not a good birth because then you might end up being in the slaughterhouse yourself. So Krishna is saying here, just be very careful, because if you act too materialistically, you will also be covered by this material energy. Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and burns like fire. So Krishna is giving a very simple example, and this, I think all of us experience this. If you have lust or material desire and you feed it, what happens? The desire grows, the lust grows, right? Just like with a fire, if the fire is burning and you pour more fuel onto the fire gets stronger. So in a similar way, if you are lusty or if you are materialistic and you just increase your desires, then what's going to happen, right? You'll just become more lusty, more materialistic, right? And your desires will just increase. So we have to be very careful. Don't feed the desires. The American Indians, they have a very nice teaching that in all of us, there are two wolves, right? In our consciousness, there's two wolves. There's the spiritual desire for spirituality and the desire for materialism. It's in all of us. And they say that whichever wolf that you feed will become strong and the other one will die if you do not feed it. So they give a very nice example. Feed your spiritual self, and then that will grow, and starve your material side, and that will gradually dissipate. So that's it. If we want to progress in spiritual life, that's what you have to do. You have to. If you feed your material desires, you can't progress spiritually. Text number 40. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Prabhupada explains in the purport that the capital of lust is the intelligence, right? Because the mind is lusty, the senses are lusty, but the intelligence has to work out how to fulfill our lusty desires. Therefore, the intelligence is said to be the capital of lust, right? Where does our lust ultimately lie? We have to, like, if you want to win a war, you have to attack the capital of the opposing regime, right? You have to bring down the capital. So in the same way, if you want to destroy lust, you have to go into your intelligence, and you have to, instead of using your intelligence to work out how to fulfill your material desires, use your intelligence to work out how to become more spiritually enlightened. So once again, you have to focus on building your intelligence, not feeding the material side of your intelligence. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So Krishna gives these two very practical and important instructions when it comes to overcoming our lust. The first is make your intelligence strong, right? So that it doesn't succumb to material desires. How do you make your intelligence strong? Just like what we're doing right now. You study spiritual teachings. That's why we're doing what we're doing now. It makes our intelligence strong so that we don't deviate and we don't become materialistic in our consciousness. And secondly, regulate your senses. In other words, control your senses, right? Regulate them, right? Don't let the senses control you. You know, if you look at the modern world, everyone is under the control of their senses, right? They just want to touch and taste and see and hear and smell, right? Anything that they want for their own enjoyment. And if you let your senses dominate you like this, you will suffer. But if you control your senses, you will also become you'll become self-satisfied. But you have to regulate your senses, bring them under control. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So this is the hierarchy. The soul should be in charge. What happens these days is that everyone forgets they're the soul and the senses become in charge. So we have to reverse the hierarchy, right? Instead of the senses being in charge, the senses are on the bottom, right? And the soul is in charge, right? So this is the instruction that Krishna has given. And the final verse for tonight, the end of chapter 3. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So this is Krishna's final instruction, right? Conquer your lust by making your intelligence strong, controlling your intelligence, controlling your mind, your senses, and focusing on serving Krishna. Does anyone have any final questions or comments? Anything we've discussed? Okay, thank you all for coming, and we will see you next week. Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Babu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Good to see you all.
Thank you, Prabhu.